Chapter 11 of Psychopomp Drive. Written by Janeen Leese-Taylor. Read aloud by SkyAsimaru. Chapter 11 Swarm. The evening came, as it always did, before Finley fully expected it, and he groaned into the pillow as he fought the rush of tiredness that greeted him when he first opened his eyes.
Am I ever going to get used to waking up at this time?
He thought, digging both hands under his chest and rolling himself over. Without the sound of birdsong and the glow of sunlight, waking up in Psychopomp Drive could be disorienting, to say the least. He didn't think that he was fully awake when his thumbs began pressing the round plastic buttons through the tiny openings in his shirt. Even in the days before his death, the mornings were the hardest part of his day. He yawned as he caught his reflection in the mirror, leaning over the sink and blinking hard to rouse himself from his daze. Today was to be his first solo hunt, his chance to use his reaper in the field for the first time. Sassy rested against the side of the door frame, her sleek steel head glistening in the artificial orange light ebbing in from the cavern outside. He had spent weeks training with the weapon, adjusting to its weight, learning how to do the most damage. But the doubts still lingered. Thoughts of the whisperers still hovered on the edge of his every wakened moment. The sounds that they made, words like a venom that spread around his body. The effects of the poison still lingered. Despite the hours of effort, his hands still shook when he thought of them.
I wonder if there's ever going to be a time when I'm not afraid of them.
He reached out to take a hold of the handle, squeezing it in both hands and allowing himself to be reassured by its solid mass. The purple glow that usually radiated from the reaper was absent, like the soul inside was sleeping. He traced an affectionate line across the wood with his thumb as he whispered,
Morning, Sassy. You ready for some action?
He felt a heat stirring in his palms, and the weapon flared to life, a shrill voice materializing in the space between his thoughts.
Morning, Finn!
Sassy greeted energetically.
Today's the day! I am so ready to kick some hollow butts!
He brought the ornate axe up to rest against his shoulder, the sharp point directed upwards.
You nervous?
Excited!
The reaper remedied.
We've been on the sidelines for so long! I'm raring to go!
He exhaled out his amusement.
Is that right?
As he moved to pull open the door, movement on the wall opposite drew his attention, and he caught the eyes of the man staring back at him from the mirror. Hair like silver, eyes bright as emeralds. The man standing across from him was almost unrecognizable now. The arms of the doll were toned and strong, the opposite of how he had appeared in life, and his usual ensemble of jeans and t-shirt had been replaced with a black jacket and dark trousers. His appearance, now more than ever, served as a reminder of his new namesake. He was to be a servant of the Grim and the Reaper both. No longer just Finley Evans, but an Amarini of Saulo, the 8th. Taking a deep breath, he headed out the door and down towards the stairs without missing another beat. They were two souls existing in the in-between, in the space on the other side of life, brought back to protect the living from the demonic pool of the hollows. And today they had a job to do. He stood before the other spirits, surveying their expressions with one of his own that he hoped gave off more of an air of confidence than he felt right now.
"Let's go,"
he said.
"And you're sure you're ready for this?"
Micah's voice was soft with concern, her brown eyes holding onto his.
"There is no harm in putting things off if you need more time,"
Rykard added coolly, standing next to them on the rooftop. The dawn light was turning his hair to orange flames, and his glasses glowed like they might ignite at any moment. Anticipation burned in the air around them, as thick as a storm. Finley swallowed, squeezing the hilt of his battle-axe.
"I've got this,"
he said firmly.
"We've got this,"
Sassy inserted. Ahead of the group, the cat-like shape of the grim Sallow had taken point. His slick black fur blended into the receding, starry backdrop of the night, his purple-toned eyes encompassing all that was and ever would be in the universe. Shooting stars danced by overhead, pulling with them streaks of brighter daylight.
"We don't have much time left,"
he commented, eyes traveling across the ground beneath them.
"The hollow should appear here very soon."
"We'll all be nearby if you need us, Mali," Micah soothed as she traced a line along his face and hair with the tips of her long nails.
"Good luck. Skretnyo."
The streaks of red hair that framed her face seemed brighter in the dark, like guiding flames that lit the path ahead. Wiser than the other spirits, Micah's encouragement was like that of a second mother, and Finley found an odd fondness swelling in his chest when he found himself catching her dark eyes. Next to him, Scrappy offered a hearty thumbs up and a grin, the amber glow of the dawn reflecting off their sunglasses.
"We'll be right here if you need us."
"I'll be back soon,"
he promised, and stepped towards the edge of the building, allowing himself to drop down into the dark alleyway below. It took a few moments for his eyes to adjust to the blackness at the street level, his pupils growing larger to accept the influence of less light. The shapes around him began to take solid form, and he tracked the outlines of the stairs and shutters of the closed-up shops. Underfoot, the cobblestones were damp and uneven, and he walked carefully to avoid toppling further into the street. His tail made long, sweeping motions behind him. The animalistic ears on his head pricked up like sonars, listening for any sound that was out of place. He spun at the sudden eruption of laughter as a group of university-aged men approached him from behind. Adrenaline rushed through his system, and his whole body felt tight as a guitar string with nerves.
"Keep it together, Finn,"
he steeled himself, taking a slow breath in and out as the men continued on past, knocking against each other giddily as their voices carried on into the night.
"This is nothing you haven't encountered before."
He twisted back up towards the buildings again and studied the space around him. The reports from earlier in the evening had mentioned a rogue hollow in the area. but had provided little else in the way of information. But he knew what to look out for. He closed his eyes, slowing his breathing as he concentrated on picking out each individual sound on the wind. The chug of an old 3-door car struggling up the hill nearby. The whistle of a shop window left slightly ajar overhead. The rustle of a crisp packet bouncing against the curb. And there, soft as a whisper amongst it all, was the sound of a voice. He focused on the words, the intensity of them as they grew steadily faster, more heated. The other sounds of the city were getting louder as well, encroaching on him from all sides, pulling him away from the voice he wanted to give his attention to.
Behind you!
He ducked just as the sweep of the metal bar passed by overhead, his eyes widening in shock as the figure of a man materialized before him. He was dressed in jeans and a shirt, his eyes black and expression feral. As he brought the crowbar down again, one thing was certain in Finley's mind. This man was alive. "Oh, hell!" he shouted in surprise as the metal scraped the ground in the space where he had been just a split second before. He rolled off balance, pulling Sassy in against his side. The man bent at the hip opposite him, panting and showing his teeth like a rabid dog. Saliva dribbled down his chin, tapping out Morse code onto the ground as he swayed to the left and right. He held his makeshift weapon in one hand, the steel glistening in the unnatural ochre of the streetlight as he bobbed in place, his breath setting the rhythm for the rest of his motions.
This isn't right. He shouldn't be able to see me,
Finley thought, pausing to catch his breath.
I haven't said a word all night.
The stranger grinned, and Finley knew the man didn't really give two tosses what he was or wasn't supposed to see or do. The Amarini glanced around the man's body frantically, trying to find evidence of the black, wispy form of the reported hollow, and came back empty. His ears perked up as the sound from before grew steadily louder, the words forming an irritating buzzing sound the more that they overlapped. Buzzing.
Shit,
he thought, realization dawning on him.
It's not a whisperer, it's a corruptor.
There's another one!
Sassy shouted in the corners of his mind, her purple magic flaring along the wood in alarm.
Behind you, Finn!
He rolled to the side without looking, trusting the instincts of the weapon as he snapped up to counter the next blow. The meat cleaver in the man's hand collided with his own blade and bounced to the side, sending its owner stumbling off balance. The youth glared up at him with black-filled eyes, shadowy shapes moving beneath the top layer of his skin, like insects trapped under a tarp. The creatures had wormed their way into the man's body and mind, enthralled him with promises of violence and power, crawling across his bones and infecting him right down to his very cells. The buzzing sounds that they made were like those of an insect, the multitude of voices piling over one another to drown out the man's own conscious thoughts.
I just need to find an opening,
Finley thought, clenching his teeth together and bracing as a third man appeared and attacked from his left. He twisted on the spot and pinned the metal poker in place with the battle axe's long handle, pushing against the force of the man and sending him shoulder first into the stone ground behind him. The human, a blonde in his mid-20s, reared up on impact and lashed out with both hands outstretched. Doubt flared in Finley's mind about the safety of the human vessel, and he hopped backwards, feeling the man's nails biting against the back of his hand and down his bare arm as he slipped out of grasping distance. He let out a quiet hiss under his breath, and then a shout as a metal bar connected with his shoulder. The buzzing was growing louder, so loud that it was beginning to affect his vision somewhat, filling it with static and white noise. He shook his head, hoping to clear away the onslaught of sound, and brought his reaper up to defend against the coming blow. He ducked blindly and brought the blade down in a long arch, praying that his lessons would hold true. Slipping through the earthly sleeve of the man, the blade caught sharply on something solid within his chest cavity. For a breath or two, nothing happened. Then suddenly the man's skin was surrounded by blackness, each centimeter made up of thick, dark goo. It was as if the river Styx itself had become contaminated with crude oil. The surface of its flesh a shimmering rainbow as it moved to surround the young man's body in its entirety. Inside its translucent body, the student thrashed and clutched at his throat, his eyes growing wide as he fought to stay conscious and in control. Finley clenched his teeth as he pulled up the front of his jacket like a protective shield.
We've got to get him out of there, Sassy, before that thing takes him over completely.
He swung his weapon down again and again as the creature rushed at him with its bizarre humanoid form, chunks of its thick gelatin flesh tearing from the center of its body. But for every new wound he inflicted, more of the watery grime bubbled up to take its place, the misshapen creature screaming out into the silent night. Droplets from its body splashed across Finley's face and uniform, soaking into his skin like a virus. An unnatural chorus of voices began to crowd his head, their volume only growing louder as more of the liquid attached to his skin and entered his system.
They did this to you. You deserve to be happy. You need to take it from them. Take their blood. You've earned it. Their deaths will bring you quiet. Don't you want the quiet?
With a breathless gasp, Finley recalled the sound the voices had made when they had been sealed within their jars in the holding room. The way they hummed, furious and filled with ecstatic anger, smashing their bodies against the glass. Unlike with whisperers, these hollows had felt so real, so solid. He remembered what Reichardt had started to say, back in that solitary room lined with jars.
The man that shot you back in the jewels.
An ordinary man, driven mad by the voices in his head. Finley clutched the battle axe, bringing it to his chest as the realization took hold. Anyone was vulnerable to these creatures. They fired off a chain reaction, destroying the lives of everyone around them. The grief of loss made people vulnerable, giving them more potential victims to corrupt. Reichardt had been right before when he said the hollows were an infection. It got inside and grew like a cancer,
And what do we do with cancer, Sassy?
Finley questioned wordlessly, gritting his teeth and twisting his grip tightly around the axe handle.
We slice it out!
The purple glow of his reaper intensified, and he spun on the spot, allowing the momentum of its weight to guide him without resistance. The enthralled humans bore down on him at an incredible pace, their speed augmented by the inhuman parasites. Finley turned fiercely, his arms dragging behind his body as he rotated the axe in a wide arc. He built up speed as he moved, his feet graceful on the uneven ground, as if he were taking part in some sort of strange dance. He mimicked the steps that Reichardt had shown him, and twisted and pulled, coaxing the hollows out to the surface of the man's body. Within the sticky sludge, 100 beady eyes, like glass, stared back at him, each spirit growling and hissing and thrashing. He could sense the heat of his magic rising around him, the faint sound of music as Sassy began to sing in the back of his mind. He closed his eyes and gave into the sweet melody of it, feeling the teeth and hands of the monsters rising from his own skin as well, the gnawing sharpness as they fought back against his spell.
Please, he willed them, let go of your pain and be free.
Slowly at first, and then all at once, 2 lightning-quick slashes stopped the buzzing, dripping creatures in their tracks, their central mass exploding outwards as their hosts were freed. The crescendo of voices rose, surging into the night all around them, screeching in the moments before the world fell silent again. The humans inside continued stepping forward on rubbery legs, eyes dazed, before they crumpled to the ground behind him, and he ran over to the first, reaching out to brush his pulse point anxiously.
Do not worry. They are merely asleep, Master Evans.
The smooth Irish twang of Saulo's voice was comforting as it cut through the unsettling quietness that followed. He hopped across the cobblestones with such little effort that it appeared that he was gliding. Around them, the shapes of several figures appeared in the lamplight. Smiling and laughing, the children gathered around the larger form of a man who bowed his head and tipped his peaked cap in their direction. The children waved and faded into the early morning air, as if they were merely setting off for another day at school. Their uniforms were all a matching shade of royal blue. Finley straightened, letting the head of his weapon come to rest by his side as he finally took the chance to catch his breath.
Those things,
he started, watching as the spirit of the man followed after them into the half-light.
They were corruptors, weren't they? It appears they latched onto these humans as they passed through the area.
The Grim commented as he came to a stop at the side of one of the fallen hosts. He reached out a paw and tilted his face slightly to the side, effectively placing him in the recovery position. He nodded towards a wall nearby, which was decorated with slowly rotting bouquets of flowers.
There was an accident here last month. A school bus collided with oncoming traffic, killed a teacher and 7 of his students.
Finley frowned.
So all this time, their spirits have been trapped in this area, unable to get out?
The cat nodded, glancing up at him with bright eyes.
In the end, it was easy for the corruption to take hold. The spirits missed their families. That pain was something the Hollows could take advantage of.
The young Amarini's eyes were pulled back towards the arch of the wall, to the petals hanging off the dying plants.
It's hard to believe that something like this could happen to people.
Salo followed his gaze.
Even children are not immune to the infection of the Hollows, he said. It doesn't seem fair, Finley breathed. No, Salo agreed. It does not. But that is why we are here. And you handled yourself very well this evening. You can rest knowing that their spirits are safe now because of your actions.
Finley let out a tired sigh.
Yeah, he agreed. At least there's that.
The animal-shaped Grim made his way towards the dark edge of the building, beckoning the young spirit with the end of his tail.
Now come on, Finley. Time to make ourselves scarce. We will not want to be here when the living wake up.
Salo slipped into the shadows, hopping from windowsill to windowsill along the side of the townhouse, amongst the traditionally painted walls of black and white. He appeared to slip in and out of existence. Finley glanced back at the sound of a soft groan, then rushed into the darkness after his Grim, rising along the rugged edges of the building until he reached the summit. The other 7 Amarini waited at the crest of it, and they each turned their heads as he joined the Grim on the damp concrete. Abby was the first to come forward, her green eyes bright and wet like morning dew, as she took hold of both of his arms.
Jesus, Finley, are you all right? We were seriously worried about you out there.
We could hear those fucking corruptors from up here.
States reached across to inspect Finley's dark jacket for damage, as Abigail's hands brushed the cuts on his face.
Man, kiddo, there's hardly even a scratch on you. How'd you do that?
I guess I got lucky,
Finley replied, pushing back their worrying hands. Reichardt glared in the dark-furred Grim's direction.
We were waiting right here, Salo. He could have been hurt fighting a swarm by himself.
The cat licked a paw and patted it against one ear nonchalantly, chasing away the first's concerns.
Finley knew that we were nearby, ready to step in if it was required. You need not concern yourself. He was perfectly capable.
Finley offered the taller Amarini a soft smile.
I'm all right, Reich. Really, he reassured him.
The French Amarini snorted, turning to look back over the slope of the city streets.
No, there's something going on here. Something is happening that you haven't told us.
His brow furrowed as he eyed the Grim with suspicion.
You've never pushed a new Amarini this hard before.
He's got a point,
Scrappy added, straightening from where they had leaned against the brick chimney.
You've been on edge all night, Sals.
Micah and Alvaro exchanged a look before turning their attention to their smaller companion.
It's all right, Salo,
Micah urged him softly.
You can tell us. We've all noticed how worried you've been.
Spectre began walking through the center of the group, his eyes glowing purple in the darkness. The wind swept through his light straw hair, making the tips of it glow like new flames in the dawn light. He sat down on the rooftop next to the Grim, reaching out to lay a comforting hand on the animal.
Salo's afraid of the new hollow,
he noted, his voice little more than a breath of wind through the budding spring leaves.
He doesn't want to lose anyone. Wants to make sure we're all prepared for what's to come.
Finley felt something new and sharp in the center of his gut, and he held his breath. Next to him, States shifted uncomfortably on the spot.
"A new hollow?"
the man questioned, eyes widening as he turned his head towards the taller man next to him.
"What's he talking about, Rocky? Something like that isn't possible, right?"
Salo leant against the side of Spectre's leg, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath in. His paws kneaded the damp cement underfoot in something akin to nervousness.
I apologize for keeping you all in the dark. There is still much we do not know. We've only had a few reports so far.
Salo, Abby said softly, crouching down to be level with their leader. What's going on? The Grimm's galaxy eyes took in each of the faces around him, and he audibly swallowed.
I think it's about time I told you, he said, about the destroyer.
To be continued in Chapter 12.